I have a couple of fires to report on from overnight. Last night, about 9 o'clock in the evening, fire department was called out to 1256 South Kansas for the report of a house fire. When they arrived, there was moderate smoke and fire in the attic space. All 4 occupants of the home had self-evacuated, thanks in part to a working smoke detector, which had gone off and alerted them to the fire. Crews did find fire in the attic space around a chimney flue pipe. The flue pipe had not been cleaned, and this was the first time this year the family had used their fireplace. We estimated the dollar loss to $10,000 to the structure and just over $1,000 to its contents.
People were inside, Brad?
4.
How old were they?
I don't know.
All adults or adults or children?
2 adults and 2 children.
He doesn't.
Then, at 1:30 this morning, the fire department was called out to 4815 South Minnesota. Again, when the fire crews arrived, they found fire in the attic space. There were 3 occupants at home at the time that the fire was discovered. All 3 occupants had self-evacuated. The fire was confined to the attic space and was the result of an electrical distribution system or power cords that were overloaded. What had happened was the occupants were using space heaters, which were being ran by extension cords and power strips, and it simply overloaded the electrical line that was supplying that outlet. The damage estimate was $10,000 to the structure and $2,000 to its contents. All 3 of the occupants were adults. Deb?
Thank
Do you have a time on the first fire?
Yeah, it was 8:51.
And Brad, on that second one,
Mhm.
did you say, I just heard on the news this morning, space heaters were all
Yeah.
plugged in up there?
Space heaters, numerous extension cords, and power strips. And they had overloaded the electrical distribution system
And so the fire started?
in the attic space. Uh-huh.
How does that?
Okay, so everything works downstream from an appliance. The appliance is the end user of the electricity. Well, anything between the appliance and the breaker panel is typically the weak link in the system. So whether it's the extension cord or the power strip or the 120 volt distribution line, anywhere it's spliced, anywhere there's an outlet, anywhere there's a weak link in that system, that's where your failure is going to be. Now, we would hope that the breaker would trip, right? Cut the power off and then there's not a fire, but in this case the breaker didn't trip, so something was wrong between the breaker and the appliance. And what we typically do, instead of saying it was the power strip or it was that extension cord, we'll leave it as an electrical distribution issue. That way electrical engineers or the insurance company can come in and identify specifically what element of that failed.
How old was the house? I'm curious how old the wiring was.
That area, I would be guessing, but that area of town is fairly old, probably 50s or 60s, 1950s, 1960s.
You told us the address, right?
It's 4815 South Minnesota.
Right, I can look
Yeah,
that
it's
up.
an older part of town.
And how many space heaters did they have going?
We don't know. All the update says, I don't know, I should say, was that there were space heaters and numerous extension cords. I don't know exactly how many they had. But it is a good reminder, this time of year, we had a fireplace fire and a space heater fire. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. Heat-producing devices this time of year with floor furnaces, space heaters, and those kinds of things, you need to provide ample space around them and use them in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. Space heaters, for example, should be plugged directly into an outlet, and don't use an extension cord. Extension cords tend to heat the wiring up. It provides resistance to the flow of electricity, which causes heat downstream. And when you have heat in a system like that, it's not designed to accommodate that kind of failure. It will possibly result in a fire.
Wasn't there a fatal fire earlier this year where extension cords were used?
Yeah, for
An AC
air conditioning unit.
Yeah.
AC units, some of them are 240 volt systems, some of them are 120 volt systems. Same with space heaters. There are higher power space heaters out there, but those things just simply aren't designed to run off extension cords. The extension cords aren't heavy enough for those kinds of appliances.
And on the chimney fire, how did, if you don't clean that,
Mhm.
how does a fire start?
Okay, so in wood-burning fireplaces, when you burn wood, it develops soot, which is, the aftermath of having something on fire, but it also deposits creosote. Creosote is a chemical found naturally occurring in wood, and it's kind of a resin. It's kind of a sticky resin, and it's a combustible. It adheres like the smoke to the pipe inside the chase, and if it gets heated to its ignition temperature, it's going to ignite. Now, a little bit of creosote isn't a problem. You burn your fireplace, there's soot in there which will continue to burn, there's creosote which will burn, it burns off and it goes away. But if you let it accumulate over years and there's a significant amount of creosote in there and you've got a nice hot fire, it's going to catch on fire. Fireplace flues are designed to keep the heat in there and evacuate it up the top, but if it gets over its rated capacity, it's going to expand, which means the joints separate and the fire leaks out into just the wood framing of the house. And when that happens, you have a fire in your fireplace space or in your attic if there's not proper fire stopping, and you end up burning part of your roof off, which is not good.
And do you see that often this time of year?
Yeah, we'll see it. We'll see it more even through the rest of this year. I don't have the exact numbers of fireplace fires that we have. I can find those, but we typically see a handful of those kinds of fires over the course of the winter season. Totally preventable by maintaining, doing maintenance, cleaning those out. In fact, you can buy those kits at the hardware stores, the brush and extension kits, and you put them in there and you run them up and down and clean all that creosote out and vacuum up the remnants, and you're good to go. It's just a matter of doing it. There's people that do that for a living too.